Hey, happy Open Access Week, everyone. I'll be doing a presentation on open science. So what is open science? Open science is the concept of making the process of scientific research and the dissemination of those outputs accessible to everyone. So researchers collaborate with each other through open networks where information is freely shared. In the humanities, this is often referred to as open scholarship, but the concepts are nearly the same. Um, so, what are some examples of open science? So, I'm not going to cover all these, but in open science, there's something referred to as open notebooks. So, open notebooks is the practice of making the entire primary record of a research project publicly available online as it's recorded. So this involves placing the personal or even like the laboratory notebook of the researcher online along with all the raw and processed data and any of the associated materials there within. Um, so the approach may be best summed up by a slogan that is often used in open science, no insider information. Open data is another area of open science. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. And this is the idea that some data should be freely available to everyone to use and republish as they wish without restrictions from copyright or like patents or any other mechanisms of control. And I say nearly all data because some data shouldn't be shared. And open science is pretty clear about that as well. There's also a concept called open peer review. Open peer review, in its broadest term, refers to the combination of openness in the review process of a manuscript. So, this is when the author and the reviewer are clear of what each other's identities are and what their role is. And as they review the manuscript or any other research output, it's more of a back and forth between the researcher and the reviewers. Now, they could also introduce different authors into this process, or sometimes even reviewers. Another area is referred to as citizen science, and I think this is at the core of what open science is attempting to achieve. Um, it's described as like public participation in scientific research. A lot of the thrust behind that is the concept that if you bring the general public into the research process, you actually are allowing them to better educate themselves on what the research process really looks like, where scientific research is concerned. This is a good way to help educate people what the advantages and the goals of scientific research is, which I think is becoming increasingly more important. There's other areas too within open science, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with many of them, like open educational resources and of course open access. Um, and then the scientific social networks that I alluded to in the previous slide. So some of the benefits of open science, um, you know, open research awards have been created by several funding agencies. In fact, funding agencies are actually mandating open sharing of research. Thus, researchers who are already participating in open science are already taking advantage of some of these awards that funding agencies have in place. Publishing in open access journals, it does result in more citations, causing other authors to cite more papers because they do not need to pay to have access to them, to read them. In addition, open publications get a lot more media coverage. And contrary to what some believe, the peer review process in open access publications is quite rigorous. Many open access articles actually are produced in top tier journals owned by some of our top publishers like Elsevier, Springer, Nature, and Wiley. Um, Now, there could be issues with those big publishers owning the open access space, and it's something we should really be pretty cognizant of and aware. By submitting data and research materials to independent repositories, similar to like SOAR, the content of your research is preserved and accessible for the future. This is particularly beneficial when researchers have to respond to requests for data or materials. In addition, when researchers release their data and materials, there is clear documentation of the key products of that research. This, of course, increases the reproducibility of the findings by other researchers. And ultimately, when researchers share data and materials, they're actually, you know, participating in that transparent goal of open science, and they actually value that transparency. And it allows them to even have more confidence in their own research. Success in research requires collaborations, and that's been the case for a long time. But oftentimes it's way too difficult to identify and connect with the appropriate collaborators. There's a lot of work that goes into identifying potential research collaborators, and open science helps to remove some of those barriers in identifying collaborators. So practicing this open science or the concept of open science makes it a lot easier for researchers to connect with one another. So what are some of the disadvantages of open science? There's always the chance for misuse or unethical practices. So this could be somebody claiming another's research as their own when it really isn't. There's also the chance that open science could be misunderstood by the public. Oftentimes we've dealt with open access being considered less than traditional published materials, and I think that that could still hold true in the public's eyes where open science is concerned. There is always that value proposition. If something appears to be free, it could be less than something you pay for. And there's always the chance that some of the science that's produced could be inaccurate. Now that happens with traditional research as well as it does with open science research. But the idea that there could be inaccurate science being conducted using open science, I think there would be a larger level of scrutiny applied to that. And similar to open access, open science could be commandeered by organizations and companies that don't always have science in the best interest, and that science isn't their main focus. It could be profit or other motivations for them participating. What's really interesting is that it appears that researchers do seem to want more open access publications, and they do want to have more open data, and they do want more open peer review. But they do think that the current scholarly communication environment doesn't work well, and maybe it's not sufficient to help them achieve those goals of more openness. And so this is where I think libraries can step in to help with just general awareness and helping to communicate this to their campus. It oftentimes I think libraries, when they step into any type of new enterprise, they feel that it's one more thing they're being asked to do, that they have to control and they have to own, and they have to make sure that they are the ones who are driving the change. And I think open science is very transparent and very networked, so it's not just on the onus of libraries to make sure open science is properly communicated across the campus, but I think they have a major role to play, and it's a role that we should welcome and seek to participate in. So many of our faculty are already participating in open science. And identifying who those faculty are, maybe they could help educate us on what we can do to help them become more active in open science, and maybe help them to be more productive in the world of open science. This is, of course, is another great opportunity for librarians just to collaborate. I think we're probably some of the better collaborators on the academic campus, and I think this is another opportunity for us to do this. And I think it also breaks down those barriers between libraries and the overall research enterprise. You know, we're more than just providing access to materials. You know, um, we should have a role in that research enterprise on our campuses, and try to determine what that role is, would depend on each individual campus. It provides another opportunity for us to participate in the overall research process. You know, there are librarians in SUNY who are really active in helping our faculty achieve their research goals. And this gives us another pathway into helping in the overall process. Um, you know, we could look at some of the current practices we're already involved in and how that helps us support open science. We could actually be doing this in our own backyards right now, and we're just not aware of it. I also think this is a good opportunity for us to take a look at our liaison programs. The role we already have with scholarly communication and the role our OER librarians are playing. And it may help us to further cement stronger relationships with the vice presidents of research, which I think is an important role for libraries to play. So I want to say thanks to everybody, and happy Open Access Week.